Hey guys, I'm going to be doing our read aloud of Chicken Boy for you. We're going to, we actually made it about a page and a half into chapter 10, but I'm just going to start back at the beginning of chapter 10 because it's been a while since we've read. So, chapter 10. The next Saturday, me, Henry, and Granny went to get my chickens. It was the first week of October, and Granny had just gotten her driver's license back, so she was ready to lay a little rubber to the road. Said she knew somebody who had a variety of laying hens he was willing to sell out at a farm on old Highway 98 going into Durham. No Astrolorps, but he did have an Araucana and two Rhode Island Reds and two White Leghorns, all under 2 years old, meaning they still had some good egg-laying days ahead of them. Me, Henry, and Harrison had pooled our money to pay for them, Harrison making it clear that he was investing in the business and would expect to get his investment back as soon as we turned a profit. First thing we do when we get there is listen, Henry said in the truck on the way over. If the chickens aren't making noise, we don't want them. Why not? I fiddled with the radio, trying to get a song that Granny could live with, which meant something country or nothing at all. Henry tapped the side of his head. Mental health in a chicken is very important, my man. We want happy, talkative chickens. If the coop is quiet, turn tail and run. I landed on a song about daddies and pickup trucks and 4th of July parades, which was right up Granny's alley. What else, Mr. Chicken Expert? Bright eyes, good poop. We gotta check their poop? Henry looked at me like, how could I ask such a dumb question? Poop is at the top of the list of things to check. You need to see high-quality poop coming out of a chicken's rear end before you buy it. No diarrhea, nothing funky. Granny was nodding. You can tell a lot about an animal by its bowel movements. You want to look at its eyes, too. My second husband brought home a sick pig once. I knew it the minute I looked at her. Eyes were dull as dirt. Normally, a pig is a real bright-eyed creature, but this one looked like it had been watching TV and drinking all afternoon. Made the other pigs sick, too. I'll check out the eyes, I told Henry. You can be in charge of the poop. Granny turned off the highway onto a gravelly lane. Make sure they ain't too henpecked, neither. You don't want one at the bottom of the pecking order, that's what I've always been told. Them's the ones too nervous to lay regular. Mr. Bynum Nelson was the man selling the chickens. He walked us down to his coop, past a pig pen that seemed to hold as many geese as pigs. I never did see such pigs for loving geese, Mr. Nelson said as we passed by, only they're bad for eating the eggs. Good-looking pigs, Granny remarked, real healthy. That seemed to please Mr. Nelson. His cheeks went red and he gave a wave of his hand saying, We do our best to take care of 'em. You'd think there was some sort of chicken party going on for all the racket we heard coming up to the coop. I looked at Henry. He gave me the thumbs-up sign. As soon as we saw the birds, he got this glow about him, like he'd entered chicken heaven as a guest of honor. As Mr. Nelson pulled out the chickens he was wanting to sell, Henry nodded his head, slow at first and then faster. You having a seizure? I asked him. Or you just seeing better poop than you expected? These are fantastic chickens, Henry said, grinning. He held out his arms and turned around in a circle like he was taking it all in. It's great to be here. Real chickens, real pigs, real geese. This is where it all begins. Where what begins? Real life, man. Unprocessed, unpackaged. It's not TV. It's not some video about farms you watched in second grade. It's the real thing. Mr. Nelson stood behind Henry, holding a wire cage filled with 5 chickens. You one of them organic types? He asked, sounding suspicious. Let your chickens roam hither and yon? Yup, Henry answered him. No growth hormones, no antibiotics. They're free to roam the roost. It figures. Mr. Nelson stepped around Henry and headed toward Granny's truck. Good luck with the Corsia. That's all I gotta say. I turned to Henry. What's Corsia? Chicken disease. Lots of eye pus involved, Henry informed me. Not a problem if you don't let your chickens get stressed out. A relaxed chicken is a healthy chicken. Remember that. Nobody'd said anything to me about chicken diseases. All the talk about poop was bad enough. "You gonna come back with me to Granny's?" I asked Henry as we drove away from the farm, gravel crunching under the truck's tires. I wasn't sure I wanted to be left alone with my new chickens now that I had eye pus to worry about. He shook his head. "It's got to be you and those chickens at first. You've got some serious bonding to do. You might try singing to them." We dropped Henry off at his house before driving the chickens back to Granny's. The chickens would stay in the shed until me and Henry could build something better. We didn't have to worry about introducing my new flock into Granny's old flock. She'd eaten the last of her chickens for supper the Sunday before to make room. Granny helped me get the chickens out of the cage and into the coop. Then she went inside to do chores. I had a tube feeder and waterer already set up, and I'd put out some crushed up oyster shells in a pie plate so the chickens would get plenty of calcium for strong eggshells. The chickens pecked around in the dirt in the yard. I was used to chickens by now after all my training with Henry, but I still didn't feel friendly toward them. Not the way Henry did with his chickens. If Henry had come over, he'd have hugged on these chickens and looked him in the eye and said, "Zuzu, Zuzu." He'd have come up with a bunch of good chicken talk to get everybody relaxed. Well, that was the difference between me and Henry right there. He was a talker and I wasn't. He talked to the cafeteria ladies when he bought his milk for lunch, and he talked to the kids at the tables around us when we ate. He talked in class until the teachers shut him up. Henry was a world-class talker, which made me a world-class listener. But when I listened to the chickens, I couldn't understand a thing they were trying to tell me. "Maybe I ought to name you," I said to the chickens. That could be step one of my scientific process, seeing if chickens cared whether or not you called them by name. The Araucana looked at me with an orange eye. Her head moved back and forth in that chicken way. "I'm going to call you Ms. Blue," I told her, "since that's the color of your eggs." She didn't say a word, but it seemed like maybe she halfway understood what I was saying. I named one of the Rhode Island Red Rufus, since I knew Rufus had to do with some kind of red animal. Maybe a red dog, but a chicken wouldn't know that. I named the one that scratched the dirt with her left foot Lefty. The white leghorns were Willie, after Granny, and Otis, after Henry. I told them their names over and over so they could learn them. Then I tried to figure out what I should do next. When I got tired of just standing there gawking at the chickens, I sat down in the dirt. Out of nowhere, I started humming, "This Land Is Your Land." Miss Blue walked right over to me. She cocked her head to the left and then to the right. She acted like it was a familiar song to her. For a minute I thought she might start singing with me, but after a couple of verses she went on her way, bobbing her head. I didn't know if that bird had a soul or not, but I was pretty sure she had a brain, and I guess that was a start. All right, that's the end of Chapter 10. Tune in tomorrow for Chapter 11. See you guys.